Folks, welcome back to Old Bridge Outlook with Mayor Owen Henry. Today we're talking about health. First, in the early part, we discussed cancer. In part two here, we're going to talk about another serious condition, autism. And Mayor, I know we have talked about it a little bit off the air. I know you've got some opinions on it, autism being the problem that it is.
Yes, Gene, this is a two-pronged attack here why I brought Kathy in. As mayor, I try to go to all the ribbon-cutting ceremonies, new businesses opening up in town, because I know it's so important for economic development. And I want to say thank you to Kathy for, she had an existing business in town and she went to expand it. So now she's moved to, she has two locations, one's on Route 34. And I was invited to the ribbon-cutting ceremony. And at that ceremony, I was so moved by what I saw, the service that Kathy provides, and it deals with autism, and how special we are in Old Bridge, how lucky we are in Old Bridge to have this service here. And she can, you know, it was just the children were there, the workers were there. I saw a dedication that I have never seen before in a small business. And the parents so thankful for providing this service here in Old Bridge. And I just wanted to thank Kathy as a small business owner to expand her business, stay here. I'm sure she had the opportunity, she could have moved to another community, but she decided to stay here. But the most important reason I asked her to come here today is to get the message that she impressed upon me and just with autism, how important it is for parents of young children to have the information that Kathy has made available to come down here and broadcast out to the residents of Old Bridge. I hope at least one or two parents, at least, it would be worth it if one or two of them could learn something from what we do here today. So I'm going to sit back, I'm going to listen, because I have a lot to learn. I know this is a subject that a lot of us have a lot to learn on. And Kathy's probably talking to people, she's probably the one that knows the most about it, and we're so lucky to have her right here in Old Bridge. So, Gene, take it away.
Take it away. Okay, thank you, Mayor. And Kathy, let me formally introduce you to the folks out there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kathleen DeMarco. She is the owner of several businesses here in the township and deals with autism on a daily basis. Kathy, I extend my welcome in addition to the mayor's. Tell us a little bit about those businesses the mayor talked about. What are you involved in here in the township, and how does it relate to autism?
Sure. One of the things, 14 years ago, I opened a business, Minding Miracles Learning Center, so that children with autism could have the opportunity to be included in a preschool kindergarten program with their neurotypically developing peers. From there, especially now in the past year, New Jersey has made available to parents with certain insurance company privileges being able to support and cover some of the services that their children may need. So the outpouring has been much greater, and parents really reaching out for support. In such, we opened Every Little Step, where that is a part of the business that is solely dedicated to providing autism services for children and for really supporting families who have children on the spectrum. The other component of that business is offering community support. So we're doing some training, sensitivity trainings for first responders. We have an open forum on Thursday evenings at Every Little Step at 254 Route 34, so that parents and any member of the community can come and find out about autism. We feel that if, say, the service person at Fridays is going to be working with the child and they have children with autism, it's good for them to get a little bit of information about who they're serving.
Interesting point, right.
So then what I'd like to do today is just really have available to parents the some of the knowledge that's involved inside of autism. Because
Okay. Well, why don't we get started? If I may, before we do officially here, Kathy, with some of the questions. What is your background? Are you a clinician or are you a psychologist?
I am a special education teacher from 20 years ago. My son, who's now 26, was diagnosed neurologically impaired. And with that diagnosis came a lot of research on my part on how I was going to, like most parents, how am I going to fix this? What can I do? What did I do to cause this? And so it really took a lot of great depth and understanding for me to develop to even where I am now 20 years later, in really understanding that I didn't cause this, and that there is a lot that I can do to support parents in understanding what needs to happen, so that as my son is like really living a very productive, fluent life right now, that is available to parents
Okay.
and to children. So I think that having kind of like diving in there at that early stage, I've really have taken on being a special ed teacher and now have since become a board certified associate behavior analyst, and I'm currently studying at Rutgers under the educational psychology
Okay,
department.
well, as the mayor said, I don't think we could have anybody better qualified joining us today. Kathy, if we can get right to basics, for people who don't know, what is autism?
I believe autism, it's a neurological disorder, but I believe it's a dysregulated brain, so that as the child is born into the world, different things within the environment can trigger these symptoms in a child, and they're symptoms. You can't diagnose autism through blood work or through chromosome test. It's a behavioral disorder, so it takes a psychiatrist, a neurologist, or a developmental pediatrician to really give your child that label, which I hate, labels, but I think that for certain purposes we do need to have that in place, but I think it's sometimes limiting.
So I hear you say, though, if I'm not mistaken, you're not sure what causes autism, that it doesn't manifest itself early on, it comes later. We don't have a cause.
We don't
don't
have
know.
a cause yet. I think research is really very extremely important in this. We do know that there is a genetic makeup,
There is.
and yes, there's
So it can be inherited.
It's definitely inside of genetics,
Okay.
but then what happens once you're genetically wired, it's what happens, what's the trigger that's going to trigger those behavioral characteristics in your particular case. So for one child, it may be lead. Another child, it may be their diet. A lot of kids are on gluten, casein-free diets because the parents see great results from that. But it doesn't mean that that's going to be effective for every child. And, there's a saying, if you've seen one child with autism, you've seen one child with autism.
Yeah, you mentioned that off the, that's sort of a telling comment.
So it's and that's what's so perplexing, and that, as we talked about the puzzle, it's that it is a puzzlement, and that as we put the pieces together, we will come up with a full picture, but we're still putting those pieces together and looking to see what's going to work, what doesn't work, because just because you have a lot of puzzle pieces, they're all not going to fit into what we would call they say there is no cure for autism, but I think
there is no cure.
that not at this point.
this
There are
time,
children
yes.
who have been taken off of that spectrum. It's a spectrum disorder, so they've been taken off of the spectrum disorder, but that's not to say that it's not going to pop up a couple of years from now. I had one little boy who was, the neurologist said, we're going to take him off the spectrum because these criteria of being in the speech and language delay area, being in the social deficit area, and being in the area of limited behavioral repertoires. Those three areas, like A, B, and C, are what give the neurologist the information of, does this child fit the criteria for an autism diagnosis?
So that's how it's diagnosed, when one of these things manifests itself, either to the parents or the clinician.
Right. And then there are three areas. There's classic autism, which means the child fits under several of case A, several of case B, and several of case C. But for a child with I would say PDD-NOS or Asperger's syndrome, because as we said, it's a spectrum and it goes from moderate, mild, severe, or highly functioning.
Right.
And inside of all of that criteria, your child will be, according to where he fits in those numbers of the A, B, or C, that's where they'll fit the child on the spectrum.
Can it be medicated if not cured? Is there medication
People,
available to
people
ameliorate the
People
conditions?
do use medication for, it's actually a comorbid disorder. So you can have ADD, attention deficit disorder with autism. You could have anxiety disorder with autism. You could have a lot of other manifesting kind of diagnoses with autism, and they contribute to your child's autism. They contribute to the perplexity of it. So medication does help in some cases, not all, and a lot of times, it's really a very personal choice if you're going to, especially since we don't really know what the cause is in autism in children. Do we really want to put a 3-year-old on some kind of a drug that we're not sure where that's going to take them in the future? ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis,
Yes.
is currently the what they call empirically based, evidence-based treatment that does work for children with autism. And when I say work, I mean it really supports children in moving forward in their ability to function in the world. And that's what we're really looking for. We're looking for kids to be able to function independently, be happy, and well-adjusted children. So we're not looking for brain surgeons here, but we are looking for kids and families to have a healthy, well-balanced life.
Kathy, as someone involved in that business, what is the steps? If I have an autistic child and I bring that child to you, what are the steps that you take to bring this child some comfort or some relief? Or
That's a really excellent question. And I think the first thing we do when we see a child, even in our daycare, we see children who are presenting with behaviors that are a little different from your, say, typically developing 2-year-old or 3-year-old. And when we see that happening, we just mention to the parent that, what's going on, like what we see. It's really a very concrete kind of a statement that's made, so that it's not an inferencing. I'm not guessing. I'm not thinking. I'm
You have
just
a
saying
specific
exactly
viewpoint,
like he was spinning the toys in the block area today, or he was lining up the trucks. And when we try to clean up or we take it away, he goes into a very, very intense tantrum kind of fiddy behavior. And that, although any 2-year-old may be upset if you try to clean up their trucks, the perseverativeness of the behavior and the tantrum is something where the child almost becomes unconsolable. And they're not being able to put together, that we can play with the trucks again later, we're going to have snack now. So you see these kind of things and you mention them to the parent. And eventually, through observation, we're able to really sit down and we keep data on these type of behaviors and say, so many times out of the day, this is happening. Maybe you should check with your pediatrician, who may have you see a developmental pediatrician. But we want to just look to make sure that medically there's nothing wrong with the child, So I think it's first looking at the medical aspects, making sure that the child's hearing is intact, making sure that their vision is intact, and that medically they are intact. From there, we look at, from our end, once the child does receive a diagnosis, it's doing a bit of a profile on what skills does he have, what skills does he need. Can he sort colors? Can he match object to object? Does he know what a cup is if I say get the cup or get your bottle?
Yes,
So we're looking at very concrete skills, and for the child to be able to demonstrate his receptive language, and then again his expressive language, which 2 years old is tricky for to getting language. And a lot of times kids, because they don't have language, people think, oh, maybe he's on the spectrum, but a lot of times children will develop at their own rate. So I'm not about over-diagnosing children, but I do think that it's important for us to be aware. First of all, the statistics, 1 in 48 in New Jersey is pretty high, and it's 1 in 27 for boys. So
well, boys get it 5 times more frequently as girls, as I read,
exactly.
right?
So
Mayor,
it's something to
excuse
be
me,
aware
Kathy,
of.
if I may. Mayor, what did you take away? You said you went to these ribbon cuttings and you were impressed. What did you take away during your
the dedication. I saw
exposure to
by the
this?
parents, how dedicated they are to their kids and how they're starving for information. They want to know why is my son or my daughter like this? And that's what I was impressed by, the amount of information that was available at this new center and the programs that are going to be available there. So, I mean, that's it's got to be tough as a parent. I can't imagine.
I think it's got to be tough. I knew one person, a friend of my wife's, as I mentioned off the air, had a child who was that, and it was very trying in the company that I was in at the time with the child. Kathy, to the mayor's point, though, there still seems to be a lot of public misunderstanding about autism. The incidence of autism, awareness of it. Where do we fit? What's the role? I'm going to bunch up a couple of questions here, if I may, for you. The role of government, FDA, CDC, the pharmaceutical companies. Well, the understanding or the misunderstanding seems to be rampant. And you said you learned a lot, Mayor, but it seems, when I've read, it seems there's a lot of misconceptions Yes, no?
Yes, I do think that, like it's easy. Google is a finger away.
Right.
And you could get Google all types of information, but it really is important to check your resources and check to make sure that the information that you're taking away is accurate information. I think the role of government is to keep telling the truth, keep being honest and being very open about where we're headed as a society with this, some people say it's an epidemic. I don't know.
I hear that word a lot.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a pretty strong word.
It's a very strong word, and I don't really get involved in that, but I think that it is, when I do a lot of consulting in school districts, and when I see the amount of children that I see, and I see the misinformation about how you treat these children and how I think informing people that these are children first. They're not little monsters. They have some stereotypical or oddities inside of their behaviorisms, but that they're human beings, and that to isolate your child from this child is really criminal. And that's a strong word. But I'm very passionate about it.
No, you are definitely passionate, Kathy. You're a very excellent spokesman for the cause.
So I think that just for me as an educator, it's informing the other students in the class. What is autism?
Kathy, given all our discussion, what do we do about educating parents, about educating the children themselves, about educating a society as a whole about this condition?
I think that doing exactly what you're doing today, having people who are knowledgeable inside of autism on speaking about it, making it available to the public without the public needing to go to workshops or trainings, having them be able to turn on their TV and understand, oh, this is what autism is, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is how I can support my child, support my neighbor, and as just a general member of the community, know that, gee, there's a little boy down the street. Maybe if I bring Mary, my little girl, over to play with him, that would just be a really kind thing to do. And that would be the beginning of teaching our children to be kind and caring to other individuals. So I think that it's up to us and the parents to educate children, and that we're inside of diversity, that we're all different, but we're all okay, aren't we?
Oh, bottom line, I think we are. Kathy, as a last thought here, if, as the mayor said, you've been very active bringing business here to the township, 2 businesses here to the township. If people want to get in touch with you, get in touch with your resources, who do they call? What website do they go to? Who do they ask for?
They could actually call me, Kathy DeMarco, at Every Little Step, which is 732-588-5175, or you can Google us on every-little-step.com.
Okay. Well, Kathy, I certainly want to thank you. And Mayor, you said off the air that you were bringing a passionate advocate, a passionate spokesperson for this cause, and I certainly think you've done that.
And that's my job, Gene, to get information out to the residents. It doesn't all have to be about politics. And I hope that this has helped people in town. I think it did. I'm more aware about autism now than I was a couple of days ago.
I think we all are. And Kathy, I just want to offer you a forum here. If anything else you want to discuss about autism, please get in touch with me, get in touch with Mayor Henry. We'd be glad to have you back anytime.
Thank you very much.
It's such a vital cause.
Thank you.
Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you.
And folks, this has been Old Bridge Outlook with Mayor Owen Henry for this time. We're glad to have you with us. Please stay tuned next time. I'm Gene McLaughlin.